Hello and welcome to Maxim Foods Inside Track. I hope you're all keeping well. As you know, it's always a changing global situation. Some really positive vaccination rates out of the EU and US, up to about 50 to 60% in those regions. Australia, unfortunately, Melbourne and Sydney, and New South Wales, the greater region, has gone into lockdown, trying to keep things under control there, and then also news of New Zealand in lockdown this morning. So yeah, changing situation on a daily. Vaccination rates in Australia still lagging behind a bit at about 20% fully vaccinated, so hopefully we can push on there and things can start to open up in Australia as well. In Australia and New Zealand, it's looking to be a good start to the season with milk flow conditions looking good for the farmers. Let's have a look at full cream milk powder. So that full cream milk powder price slide has begun to slow down. Against expectations, it held up quite well on the GDT last night. We saw the participation a lot less North Asian centric, so there were a lot of other regions that were buying last night. So it is positive signs that perhaps against the market sentiment that whole milk powder will hold up in the next 3 to 4 months. Let's have a look at skim milk powder. So skim milk powder, probably the least volatile of the commodities. It has remained relatively balanced. So European pricing has caught up with oceanic pricing, so they're basically on par at the moment. Demand and supply seem reasonably balanced. So we expect that trend to continue for the next 3 to 6 months. Having a look at Butterfat. So Butterfat pricing has remained firm. We saw a 4.8% jump on GDT last night, which was the second consecutive jump. So yeah, we're seeing that although supply looks to be increasing into the season, it seems to be counterbalanced by some strong demand globally. In the EU, we've seen pricing as it slid back has now corrected itself and started to jump back up. So as food service demand in that EU region increases, yeah, we could see some pretty strong pricing and firm pricing in the short to medium term. Having a look at cheese. So cheese, if we're looking across the regions, in the US still quite a hard market to read, with demand being quite unstable in their domestic market. In the EU side of things, we're really starting to see the market open up, so some firm pricing for EU cheddar as we see a lot more demand in the food service market. In New Zealand and Australia, yeah, demand has been relatively consistent. There could be a question mark over that as we see the lockdowns in New South Wales and Victoria, which will affect food service demand. But yeah, as a whole, things are relatively well balanced on cheese. Finishing off with whey powder. So whey powder in the US, after about 6 weeks of softening pricing, seems to have stabilised. In Australia, it's important to note, as we go to the end of our season, there's quite short supply of Australian produced whey powder. On the protein side of things, yeah, pricing still relatively very strong. Demand seems to have maybe found a level there, so it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next 3 months with the proteins. Thanks very much for listening to today's Inside Track. Stay safe and we'll see you again next time.